Good morning, everybody. I'm about to install the CBI bumper, stealth half bumper for the Lexus GX. There's very few instructions, so just be warned. If you've ever had to build a giant Lego set without the instructions, I think that's kind of what this is going to be like. This is what the bumper looks like from behind. It actually came out really well wrapped and on this pallet. Shipped to my door. Actually, they put it in my garage for me, so it was great. But you can see it's pretty beefy. You've got installation mounts, mounting holes right here, as well as a couple of other points. You've got mounting points down here for your skid plate. So I will tell you, it feels very beefy. I'm not sure of the exact width of this metal, but I'm gonna go measure it here in a minute. It weighs 75 pounds without any hardware on it. So I just weighed, that's what the scale here is for. But it does weigh 75 pounds. So it does come with hardware, but it's marked in these bags. They don't really make a whole lot of sense. So I look forward to figuring out where those parts go. You can also see here, came with some additional pieces that screw on, and those are the sort of the honeycomb grill appearance that you see on the front of the grill. So we shall see. To make it easier, I found somebody online who had just recently installed this. On the installation video, they use a 2020 Lexus GX, which the grille is very different on that model. So that wasn't really helping me very much because I've got a 2016 model. So I printed this off. I'll actually include the name of the person here that I got this from off of Facebook, but he did an install. It turned out pretty well, and looking at the grille there kind of gives you a sense for how to install it and the spacing. It doesn't appear that he has motion sensors. Mine does, so that was a little bit different, but I'm gonna go with the way he did it first versus the installation video from CBI, which calls for cutting it right below the motion sensor. So we shall see. This is the car currently. I've got it taped off. I'm gonna do a slow walk around just so you can kind of see where it sits. There's a line right here. You can barely see it, but there's a line right there. So your tape lines up exactly with that. You can see as I go around here, I'm leaving just a little bit below this sort of lip right there. Where it intersects, I take a line up right here. It doesn't touch the body. And then it intersects with this horizontal line that goes across the dash. Basically what I did is I counted off 1, 2, 3 of these little honeycombs, and I put my cut line right below there. The tape will actually be the cut line. That annoys me, so I'm probably gonna move it just slightly lower to account for the width of the cutting blade. And then you can see over here, I've just taken it horizontally out, and then this diagonal line just intersects with that, comes down, and same thing, repeats. Just a little bit of space right here, along here. And then as you get over to here, you can see this horizontal line in your fender. That's where the tape should line up with. So that's where I'm gonna be making my cuts. Hopefully it goes well. I will let you know when I'm done. All right, this is after the cut. I used a angle grinder, and interestingly, the heat produced, you can tell, caused some of the plastic to melt, but most interestingly, once it cooled, this actually kind of rejoined itself to the top. It popped off pretty easy once I squeezed it, but it was just kind of a scary moment there when I thought maybe it had permanently bonded itself back. But you can see now I've cut the trim here. It's still attached with some screws, so I'll have to get those undone. But right here, this is a tough piece. My angle grinder actually would not reach up in there, and so I'm gonna have to use a little hand saw right here just to get in there like that. You get the point. And cut those pieces. That's on both sides, but took it across. Very easy to cut. Again, I used an angle grinder. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. Make sure you use ear protection and eye protection. There is the cut all the way around. There you go. So now I'm gonna finish those 2 cuts by the chrome pieces, and then I'll take the bumper off. All right, now that I have the bumper cut, I needed to remove the bolts that are holding this lower fascia piece in. There's 10mm screws, bolts that go in. Underneath here, you can see where I've taken them out already. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. And they come out pretty easy. I've got an impact wrench, which made it very easy to get out. They do tend to stick a little bit. Now I can take this front piece off, so I'll give that a try right now. All right, as you can see, I had to fight it a little just to get it separated from the cut seams where the plastic had kind of melted back on. And then these corner pieces right here, they really are a tough spot. You got to get way back in there to get the plastic cut. And then there's a little piece right here where it's going to fight you, and right here where it's going to fight you. This is the, it's a piece of foam for collision. Pfft, who needs that? And on this other side, it gave me a little bit of trouble too. Same thing. You can see this sort of inside trim piece here that was fighting me. And then this foam piece, you can actually see, I think this actually gets removed during the installation process. But otherwise, I think it came out pretty good. There's a couple of pieces here where maybe I could have done a better job of cutting, but I don't think anybody's gonna notice in the end. I think it looks pretty good, actually. Just cleaning up a little bit of the plastic bits here. Probably use the angle grinder to come back in and get that cleaned up. Hopefully those are the right cuts, so we shall see. Looks like I made a little bit of a mistake right there. I'll come in and fix that with the angle grinder as well. The kit did not come with the trim that you can put on the body cuts. It's kind of like a dressing. It's a piece of trim plastic that slides over both sides. It really cleans it up. So I'm probably gonna run to the auto parts store and get some of that and put it on there just to clean it up and make it look really nice. Probably will get that installed before I put the bumper on, because it'll be difficult otherwise. And then that probably will cover up this little mistake right here. So trim is always your friend. So anyway, that's where I am right now. Okay, so I pulled this foam piece out. It goes right here. It literally just comes out with a tug. That's not necessary anymore. And then I also came through here and cleaned up these little pieces down here. I'm gonna take a file to some of these and just get them really clean so that they look nice and neat. Once we get the bumper on there, I just take these little hanging chads of plastic that are on there caused by the angle grinder. So, all right, next you need to take out these 3 bolts right here. 10mm socket. Or 3 bolts, 2 bolts, 2, and then 1 retaining clip. My bolts were missing. Look at that. Saved me some time already. And then this one you can just put something underneath it and just kind of pry it out until you can kind of pop it out. 12mm socket head. We're gonna go in through here, and then there's some holes back in here as well. Not sure exactly where they are, but I'll go find them. All right, next, now that we have the skid plate off, we need to take off these skid plate supports. It's gonna use a 14mm socket. There's a bolt here, 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 and here. And I'm working on getting these skid mount brackets or braces off. Now, I told you incorrectly, this screw does not need to come off, but there is another screw or bolt I didn't see. So there's one here, and there's a third one in the back right here. You've got to get all 3 of those off before this bracket will come off. You can see right here, I've already taken the bracket off. It was attached right there and attached right there. So just make sure you get all 3 of those bolts off. All right, now that I have the skid plate brackets off, we need to loosen up the power steering line right here and right here. We're just gonna take the bolts out and we're just gonna let that hardware hang. Next, we need to remove this aluminum brace here. There's 3 bolts here and 3 bolts here. They are 14mm in size. Now that we have the aluminum brace off, we need to take these standoffs off. They have 14mm bolts here and 3 on this side. And that's on both sides. You can see 1 here, and 1, 2, 3 there. And this whole piece right here comes off. All right, I got these stands off from here, but boy, that was tough. I had to use a cheater pipe to get it loose, so you're gonna have to put your muscle into it. All right, one thing I didn't show you is down here underneath the bumper where you've cut it, there's gonna be an inner fender well piece that hangs down like this that you need to remove. It has several little plastic clips. In fact, you can still see mine are in here from where I cut them on the back side. So you just cut them with like a pair of snips, and then they just pull right off, and then left over will be these little plastic clips. They're trash, you can just throw them away, won't need them. And apparently the kit comes with some kind of brace to hold this from flapping around. Here we are at the halfway point. We have finished the disassembly. All the different pieces, from cutting the bumper to taking off the skid plate, the aluminum bracket, the standoffs, all off. Ready to install the bumper now. Everything's been cut, hopefully in the right place. We'll see. There weren't any instructions, so I'm just kind of winging it all the way around. Should be good to go. I'm gonna actually run to the auto parts store right now and get some trim cover, and then get that installed, and then I'll start putting the bumper on. Before I install the bumper, I'm going to be installing this Smittybilt XTO 10,000 pound winch. It's the waterproof series with the synthetic rope. So we've got that new in the box sitting here, and I'll be mounting that right onto the bumper. And I'll do that first because you don't want to be mounting a winch to a bumper once it's already installed in your car. Trust me. One thing I wanted to mention, there's a lot of bolts that come out of the car when you're disassembling everything, and you want to make sure you keep those straight because we're going to be using them again. So I've put all of them in these little Ziploc bags, marked them according to what they are, so that later on when I need to put everything back together, I'll know where each little piece is, and I won't have to go guessing at which is which, and take a risk of stripping out a bolt. So there you go, just a tip. All right, I'm just doing a rough test fit here of the winch. I know I've got it turned around the wrong way, but I just wanted to get it in here to see how it would fit. But most importantly, I wanted to see how much clearance I'm gonna have above the bumper. So as you can see, it's got the handle for the spool up here. And from the side, you can see it definitely stands up above the bumper. I don't know yet how much room I'm gonna have once I get up in there. But I'm gonna have to look and see if there's enough clearance, and then I'm also gonna have to make sure that there's enough room for the solenoid. If not, I'll have to relocate the solenoid to somewhere in the engine bay. I confirmed with Smittybilt that that can be done. It doesn't say it on their website, you really kind of got to pry it out of them, but they did finally concede that you could run an extension on the cables for the solenoid. So I just attached the honeycomb inserts. That's my word, I'm sure they call it something else. But these pieces right here, they mimic the pattern on the grille that came with the car. So I think it's a nice little feature. It kind of ties it in with the styling of the rest of the car. I didn't realize this, but you definitely need to install these before you put the bumper on the car. I did it last, and it's really hard to get your arm down in there to get these little screws attached. So do yourself a favor, put these on before you attach it to the car. Fortunately, I was also able to fit my fairlead on there. I had actually taken it off. I had already put it on, and then I had to take it off to get this honeycomb piece behind it installed. So that's a pro tip, learn from my mistakes. You will need to take this cover off of the engine bay eventually, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. If you've never done this before, these clips are really easy to take off. They look like this, and basically you just push in till it clicks, and then it can just pull right out like that. I will warn you, when you take these out, if you leave them on this cover and you go to lift that up, they will pop, they'll go airborne, they will roll under some cabinet that you can't get under, and you will lose them. So take them off first before you pull this cover off. I promise you, you will appreciate this advice. You're here trying to figure out if I have room for the winch. And as you can see, there's a big cavity here. There's a lot of space. I mean, that goes all the way up my hand. The distance of my hand is basically from here to here. So there's quite a bit of distance there. I'm hopeful that will give me enough room for clearance of the winch, because on the winch, I only really need about that much clearance. And then the way that you will access that, I'm not really sure yet, because the clutch mount is on the top, but this will be covered by this engine bay cover. So I may end up cutting this maybe right here, just to give me an access hole that I can stick my arm down into to get access to that winch, which will be roughly about right there. By the way, if you can do this with a sidekick, he's very excited. He's been a lot of help. We're measuring the bumper to make sure that my winch will fit, and realize that some of you may want some dimensions on these holes. So on the fairlead, it's a 10-inch distance from center to center on those two. I'm over here measuring the bumper to make sure that the mounting holes for the winch are appropriate for the model I bought, and realize that some of you may want some dimensions on this. So it's 10 inches. This is where the fairlead goes. That's 10 inches from center to center on those holes. And looks like the fairlead is about 8 inches by about 1.5 inches. And then where the winch would mount, this is 10 inches center to center, and what is that, about 4.5 center to center from front to back. And that matches my Smittybilt winch perfectly, so I'm in good shape there. All right, I got the bumper on a test fit here. Got it pushed into place, being held together with one bolt on each side, so definitely not exactly in there straight, but just wanted to check it first, see if there's any pieces I need to trim off. I do see a couple of places where I'm going to take a little bit off. You can see here on this side, it's I may end up taking a little bit off right here. Actually, it'd be nice to connect with that point right there. And then I'm not sure, I might end up taking a little piece off there, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with how it fits just in this test fit. It's not lined up perfectly, obviously, because the bolts aren't, all of the bolts aren't in. Up here, where I was, concerned about it, it looks like it's going to fit perfectly. It's hitting these, but I think it's going to fit perfectly. I'm hoping I'm not going to have to take anything off right there. So, and then I also got the winch mounted up in it. I wanted to do a test fit to make sure that everything on the winch would fit. I'm going to show you a couple of things just so you're aware of it. So down in here, you can see the winch. And you can see the clutch handle right here, right here. It is very close to hitting this line right here, but it's not touching it. And so I can still turn it. It does not touch that line when I turn it. I may end up doing something to this, a little hard to show you here. I may end up doing something to this bracket right here. Can't get it to focus. There's a bracket right there that holds that line in place. And I may just adjust it so that it pushes that line up higher so that it doesn't hit the clutch handle. But otherwise, it fits really well in there. One thing I will say, I was not able to fit the solenoid box in there, the control box. I had it mounted right here on this side of the winch. But that same line, whatever that line is, this thing right here, got in the way, and so I'm not going to be able to put that box in there like I wanted to, which is fine. I knew that might happen, so I'm going to put it under the hood so it'll be out of the way, out of the way of that line, and so I can access it. And I'm going to take it down, make a few adjustments, and then I'm going to attach it permanently. All right, after doing a test fit, I think I'm in pretty good shape. I also noticed some gaps in the video installation instructions that CBI offered. I know they put that out there in a rush, so I don't hold them like completely liable for that. I know they put that out just to make sure we had it as soon as possible, and hey, this is the price for being on the cutting edge, right? But given that, I'll show you a couple things they left out. And also you can see here, I've retaped some pieces of the bumper here. I'm gonna clean these pieces up right here where my cut just got a little off track, and a little bit right in here. I actually don't think I'm gonna have to take the bumper off. I'm just gonna loosen it up. As you can see right now, I've got a floor jack holding it in place, and I've also got 2 bolts on either side. So it's in there pretty good right now. All right, I got the bumper all tightened up. I got the fairlead on for the winch. I got the trim cover on there. Turned out really good. You can see right here, just really cleans up that cut line. No burrs hanging out. Looks like a pretty professional job. That stuff is a total pain in the butt to put on, by the way. That probably took me 45 minutes to put it on for both sides. So I'm about to put the bolts on for the bumper. It's getting pretty close to being finished. I did put, I don't know if you can see that, but I did put some anti-seize on the bolts here. It is recommended to do that. So might want to pick some of that up from the auto parts store. So anyway, I'm gonna get this bolted on, and then I'll get it last fit, make sure everything looks perfect, and then I'll tighten it up. All right, got everything bolted up. Everything's in the place I want it to be. A couple of things that are not included in the video instructions that I wanted to point out. If you'll remember early on, you took the bolts out of the skid plate. The video instructions don't mention anything about putting those back in. They also don't mention what you're supposed to do with this bracket. It bolts up right there, and it bolts up right there. I'm just gonna bolt them straight into the skid like that with the bolt on the outside. There's a lip, not much of a lip, but I think it's probably better for this to be touching this frame member rather than having this in between it. So you will notice on this piece, there's a little bit of a lip. I'm just gonna take a pair of pliers and bend that down so that it will suck up tight against the skid plate. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is this side bolt right here. There's supposed to be a bolt that goes right there. My kit did not come with it. So I guess I'm gonna have to email CBI and get those bolts. But as far as I can tell, that's the only piece that's missing from the kit. All right, well, that turned out to be a little confusing. One of those things where directions would have helped. This bolt and this bolt are the ones that were holding up the brake lines originally. This bolt and this bolt are the ones that were holding up the back side of the skid plate originally. So make sure you get that straight when you're putting those on. This pipe bracket, rear skid plate, pipe bracket, rear skid plate. All right, getting to the very end here, this is the skid plate that goes on the front of the bumper. I'm not sure what hardware I'm supposed to use to attach to this. I thought it might be these, somewhat better looking hex head bolts here that came with the kit, but when you put them in the holes, they have a tendency to slide around. The head just is slightly too small for the hole. So I'm afraid to try to use those. I'm afraid they'll slide around in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and write CBI on that and figure out what hardware I'm supposed to use. I'm sure they'll respond quickly. They've been really great with their customer service. So I'm not gonna put this piece on just yet. Another thing that's not really explained is what you do with the inner wheel well liner. They said that they have a bracket for it that will somehow make that more rigid. I'm gonna go look in the parts bag that came with the kit and see if I can figure out something that will make that more rigid. All right, still trying to solve for this inner fender flare liner. And I was looking through the parts, and the only thing I could see were these two brackets that came with the kit, and it's not super intuitive how they attach, so I'm just kind of guessing here. And I saw these little clips that are typically used for fender flare liner kinds of things, and these little hex head screws So what I'm guessing is that this little bracket sits up on top of here like this, and then attaches on that. You can see that face right there bolts into the fender flare. So I'm get maybe it goes like that, yeah, like that. So I'm guessing I could be totally off base. If I am, let me know. But that's the only thing I've been able to figure out so far. Super thrilled with how it turned out. Hope you enjoyed these installation instructions. Hope that if you are installing this bumper that they are helpful to you. And in the meantime, see you out on the trails.